Hey everybody, GL1 here, and I finally have enough of these He-Man and the Masters of the Universe figures to do, I think, an interesting show. This is the animated He-Man that's just a couple years old from Netflix, and it's the more child version of He-Man as opposed to He-Man Revelations. Although the plot and everything that goes on with this animated version is so complicated, I think it's really for any age. So I'm going to start with the Skeletor figures because I think they're more interesting. And I'm going to show you the first one I purchased, which is this guy over here. And you'll notice that as opposed to the 1983 versions of He-Man figures, this is more of a animated look. The skull and the angular nature of everything. The muscles are more angular. But it does have similar features to the original figures in that it does not have moving elbows, it does not have moving knees, instead of the rubber band inside, because what they used to have was a rubber band that attached to the legs, and that's how they gave it articulation, but that band would wear out. So now they do a ball joint in there. But what they had back then too was a spring in there where you would twist them and then they could, like hit with a sword or hit with, in this case, his scepter or punch, So that's kind of a throwback to the old figures. Additional articulation these have compared to the old ones, they have wrist motion and they have foot motion. So that does help them stand up better. And now they don't always have their head turned, not in this case. But the old ones, even with the rubber band joint attachments, they actually were remarkable at standing up. All right, so this is the first Skeletor, and then the next one that came out with a motorcycle of sorts, and then you have Skeletor on his motorcycle, and he's kind of neat looking too. You have all of a black look, as opposed to this one. So he's all in black. The colors are different everywhere, right? The head is different. The motorcycle, it's like a beast, and then he can store his scepter in the back here. So that's Skeletor. I mean, it functions in every other way the same. All right, so you can see him. And what's nice is that having the wrists turn do allow you to have them grip the motorcycle handles pretty easily. So you can see that. Okay. All right. So another Skeletor is this big one over here. And this is Skeletor with his battle armor. And, it's on a bigger scale. Still, you don't have knee articulation. You do have the feet, and you have the ankle joints. What you do have is lateral motion in the shoulders. Don't have elbows, but you still have that spring, and the armor can detach. And there you go. And then he has like this, sort of his magical power, has a claw, like kind of a Wolverine type of claw, right, on both sides. And you can see it has like a snake wrapped around there. So it's kind of cool. And that just is supposed to fit on here. And that's, there you go. So a lot of times they don't really attach very easily. And he could turn his head a little bit. So that's pretty cool. And so that is Armored Skeletor. And that just snaps on like that. And he's got this magical armor. And then you have something you can attach there. But I don't think his scepter, no, there's nothing. I guess, maybe in the future, if he had something you could attach. He's got like a little rubber, his little clothing there, a little soft plastic. All right, then came Skeletor Reborn. And I think this is a really neat Skeletor. So just look at this guy. So he's got, well, that's a skull head, right? But it's not a human head. He's got the ram horns. The head can move all around. And he's got like the energy skull punch and then a claw hand. Actually, maybe the claw hand is supposed to go on this one, right? Because the thumb is up. And then it just mushes in and the fist holds into there. And these things don't stay on very well. But, also an interesting upgrade, it has like a cloth here. So, and articulation, this one actually has elbows that move and actually rotate in all directions. So, and that, I remember seeing that joint on Dragon Ball Z figures, which we've never gone over, but I have a whole bunch of those, and we'll get to that too this year. And so he still has the spring in his, power punches. Okay. So anyway, really cool Skeletor, isn't he? And then we have Savage Skeletor, another neat iteration of Skeletor. Savage Eternia. So again, the head doesn't turn, but he has a different armor setup. Comparing him again to the original Skeletor, you can see he's more savage. Now the scepter's the same, just a different color, right? But you can see the armor is expanded. The hand is longer, more scary looking claw, I suppose. That hand is the same. And then he has knee armor and foot armor. He's wearing shoes. But that's a really neat Skeletor. And you have the paint inside the face there. It's a little different too. So, it's neat. And oh yeah, even his arms are armored, right? So, and his back. So, all right. So that's the Skeletors. All right. Then we'll continue with some of the antagonists. So we have Merman. Now, Merman is a really neat looking figure. It's doesn't have the spring twist, but he can twist like that. He has the shoulder, for one of the smaller figures to have the shoulder articulation is a little unique, and he has the hands. Now, all these figures, he even has the knee twist. So they gave him that, and he has the ankle movement. All these figures are around, you can get them sometimes for clearance for like $6, but there's $6 to $12. And he has his head turn. Now, this Merman figure came out last year, 2022, and it was voiced by George Takei from Star Trek, the original Star Trek. But when I saw this, I ordered this months ago, and I ordered it from Big Bad Toy Store and from Amazon accidentally because I forgot that I'd ordered it. But Amazon ran out, and so they don't know when they're coming back. So I got this eventually from the Big Bad Toy Store, and look, he has like a squid, and that snaps onto him. So I guess that's his little squiddy friend that can help him battle. And he is the ruler of the Oceanic Kingdom, and he really isn't in league with anyone. He's kind of his own entity. So he's an antagonist as well. I think, he always ends up working with Skeletor eventually. But anyway, if you haven't seen this figure, and I hope you can get your hands on it, because it's pretty highly detailed for one of these figures that's this was $11.99. All right, so, and then we have Hordak, and this is also, this usually went to She-Ra, but there's a crossover in the worlds of She-Ra and He-Man, and I believe they were cousins. So he has your waist articulation, again, no spring, and he can turn his head. He has the lateral shoulder motion and lateral legs, and he can turn his knees in and out, and his ankles do not turn, but he stands pretty well. And, he has this soft plastic for his, I don't know, it's not really a skirt, but, whatever kind of clothing that is. And then he has a bat that comes off, bat wings, and I imagine he can use that, as some sort of weapon or shield or something like, look, he's gone batty. So that's Hordak. And bats, and he looks like a vampire, doesn't he? So that works really well. And he's got the bat, symbol on his chest. All right. And then we have Evil Lyn. And if you'll note, a few episodes ago, we did the Evil Lyn Revelations on all those. And, this is quite different looking. But I think she's really neat. And she was hard to get there for a while, too. And so you just have the hip articulation. You can turn it a little bit in and out, but you don't actually have a joint in the foot. And as you see, these are the first figures, so you don't have any of the shoulder articulation either. But you do get the spring. So I guess they're like, well, you get the spring, but you don't get the other articulation. So there. And then she has her scepter. She's magical. And I had wondered how they were going to handle from the animation, this sort of stars and universe, look on her. And I think they did a pretty neat job of doing that. Kind of like a nebula, So that's Evil Lyn. And then we have Trapjaw. And there is a motorcycle type vehicle for Trapjaw, but I didn't get that. So I just got the basic Trapjaw. I never was a really big fan of Trapjaw, so I'm like, well, I'm not going to really invest in the motorcycle too. Just one Trapjaw is enough. And so he's got the little hydraulics in his arm there. And again, being one of the first generation of the figures, you don't get the shoulder articulation, but you do get the spring. And this doesn't shoot out. I guess you just have to flick it, and it just comes out. So that's his little blaster there. And, you just get the typical hip articulation just like the others. And then you get this really cool, you can get this cool Beast Man. And he's got his head swivels. And he's really intimidating looking. And he's got an energy shield. And he always has a whip. And this is quite a significant whip. He's got the wrist articulation, a little bit of shoulder articulation, and the spring. Now, these are more like a deluxe figure, so they were about $15. And have the feet move, and, you have the hip articulation, but he's a pretty neat figure. He's always neat. I think they really like making Beast Man because they, for the Revelations, which I haven't showed you yet, they have one level of Beast Man, and then they have a really cool upgraded Beast Man that I don't think enough people appreciated because I saw it on clearance in a lot of places, but it's pretty cool. All right, so that's the last of the antagonists. And we have our semi-antagonist. Because in the cartoon, now this is Rammaam, as opposed to the original He-Man where there was Ramman. And she was very close to He-Man in this cartoon. But she felt slighted and betrayed by him. She kind of misunderstood a conversation, took it out of context, and joined Skeletor. And, so one of the major subplots is trying to get her, He-Man not wanting to hurt her when they're fighting, and her going all out, and they're trying to get her back, and they don't understand what happened. But you can see she actually has the knee articulation. She has jets here. And what she'll do is she'll ball up into a ball. And she has a little bit of the spring, but it doesn't work really well. And then this comes off. So here's her ram head. And what she'll do in the cartoon is she'll kind of go into a ball. And this is like her super powerful ramming head energy and, jets and everything. And so she's real powerful when that happens. But anyway, that's a pretty neat figure. So, all right, now we go to the protagonists, and, we'll start with the He-Man. So, now sometimes I didn't like the weapons that they came with, so I switched them. But this is the first He-Man that I got, and this weapon goes with the He-Man that is over there on Battle Cat, okay? But I like that He-Man that's on Battle Cat with that sword. So this guy needed a sword. So I gave him this energy sword. Now he has his head turns, And naturally, why not? There's plenty of room. There's nothing in the way. And he can swivel his head up and down as well. He doesn't have the shoulder articulation, even though he certainly looks like he has room for it. But he does have the power punch. And, you know, why not? He's He-Man, right? And you just have the hip articulation. And you have this here, and that's so that you can attach a sword to his back so he can walk around with his sword. And then they came out with this He-Man, which is on the motorcycle. Okay, and then this sword went with that guy. And that snaps on there, and he has, you know, it's like a hawk motorcycle. And, you know, I really don't care about the vehicles in He-Man, but they always had vehicles, so, you know, why not? Oh, and they have the wrist articulation, which really helps them grip onto the motorcycle well. You know, it's nice, again, you know, the old He-Man figures didn't have that, so it's nice that they at least included that articulation in there. All right, and then we go to the really cool He-Man, Battle Armor He-Man. And so I gave him this sword because I thought this went well, better with his armor. And there he goes. And you know, let's see if this... No, okay, I was wondering if he had a different facial expression. But he's a little bit more tan, so... but yeah, he's got the armor, and look, he has a cloth cape, so pretty cool. And this is one of those deluxe figures, so this was about $15. So a little bit better, but he does have, see, he has the shoulder articulation, and he has the knee articulation, as well as the hip and the wrist. So again, you pay a little bit more, but you get a little bit more articulation, and you know, it did come with this energy sword instead. But, so see, this has a peg, and he doesn't have a spot for a peg there. So that goes with one of the other He-Man figures. But maybe you agree that this sword goes better with him. And then he's always riding Battle Cat, right? And the Battle Cat's really neat. So he has actually some forearm articulation and a spring for his claw. You know, he can scratch you. And now the head armor does not come off, as well as the back armor. He does have the ankle, and let's see, actually you can bend that. You see that little joint in there? So it actually bends, and he has the foot articulation, and his tail can move all around. So this is a pretty nice Battle Cat, and his mouth closes, so he can bite ya. But here's something that I thought was kind of cool, is that the way that they have the figures sit and kind of lock in, which works pretty okay, is you see you have these spaces here, and then He-Man has these little flaps. So you kind of install the flaps into there, and that helps He-Man to stay on, Battle Cat. Not perfectly, but it's better than nothing. You know, you can order those thin plastic bands that act like rubber bands but stretch even further. You can order them from Amazon, and then you can strap your figures down, you know, or strap weapons in their hands so they don't lose them. So that's always something you can do, too. All right, so that's He-Man and Battle Cat. And then Stratos. Stratos is a cool figure. He's got the spring in the torso. Turn his head all around. And his wrist wings can be used as blade weapons. And he can, they also help him fly. So, he's got the hip articulation and the knee articulation. And, I think that they gave him a little bit more of the articulation, a little bit in the shoulders, just very slight. But definitely this knee articulation, because he really doesn't have a weapon that he carries. So, I think that they were like, well, let's give him a little bit more articulation because he actually doesn't have a weapon. So anyway, that's Stratos, and I think he's much cooler than the original Stratos. Cooler looking. And Man-at-Arms. And Man-at-Arms, He-Man's buddy. And you could see his face. Look, you could see it beneath the blue mask there. Right? And No, it does not come off. That's what I remembered. Okay, so he has a little bit of the shoulder articulation, and he's got a nice big scepter, and no knee articulation, but he does have the hip articulation, and he has that spring. So I never was a big Man-at-Arms fan, so this is cool. It's kind of like a space guy, Man-at-Arms. Although the Man-at-Arms Revelations guy's pretty cool. All right, and we're going to get to TLS Sorceress. So this is Tila, but when you look at the package, it just says Sorceress, but this was Tila. And again, this is, see how she has like starry wings, and it was like space, like the galaxy kind of supporting her as wings. And I was wondering how they were going to do that with the helmet and the wings, and I think it came out pretty well. Good face, though. Good face detail. The eyes, the irises, all that. So that's pretty cool. And she has, her scepter, and this comes off, and you see that long hair. So, and then that locks underneath there. So this figure, well, they just recycled it. And then they made the other sorceress, which is kind of the guardian of Castle Grayskull. And I thought it was going to be a different figure, but it's not. It's the same figure, same helmet, and same face. Different color scepter, obviously. And what she does, though, is she comes with this flying bird, which actually can flap its wings a little bit. And it hooks on, and then you see that hair? So it's the same hair that the Tila figure has, but they reused it, repurposed it, and then it's like a perch for the bird, and, with various finger machinations, she can kind of, see, it's not that easy to get working, but the idea is that you can hook her hair into this perch, and then she holds on to the birds. See, and the whole thing falls apart. But where I'm going with this is that she holds on to this, and she holds on to the bird here, and then this hooks on there, and then I guess you don't need these wings because she's got the bird's wings, and then maybe she doesn't need the scepter anymore either. And then she holds on up here, and, she's flying underneath the bird. And as you can see, it's a little bit complicated and doesn't really work that easily. But eventually you'll get there, and then, eventually she'll hook on and you can fly her around. So, but I'm not going to take the time to work through all that. And then you have Manny Faces. And this was a neat figure. He has, the wrist articulation. He's got the energy punch. But, of course, what does he have? Many faces. So he's got his reptile face, his robot face, and then his human-like face. And let's see. And then he has a nice cloth cape, so that's cool, too. I thought that was a nice addition. So he's a, really neat figure. In having all these different features. And last is Battle Armor HeMan, which this is another figure that went on clearance a lot. I was surprised. I thought it was really neat, but apparently not everybody else did. So he's got articulated elbows and shoulders, still does not have bending knees, and he is a little bit difficult to get to stand up. He does have the spring in his torso, and he can take off all his armor. His head turns, and you have the spot for his sword. So he has a little bit of, forearm guards there with a little bit of claws, although the claws are so short that all it's going to really end up doing is poking into the back of his hand. But that comes off, the shoulders come off, and then you have that. And now he's just regular old, big 10-inch scale He-Man. And that's his walking around look. So, all right, so that is right now my current He-Man Masters of the Universe collection. And I know that there's more to come, but sometimes it just ends up being a little bit redundant. So I will also show you this year my He-Man Revelations collection, which is really awesome. I have a lot of great things to show you there. So thanks for watching, and I'll be seeing you soon.